If you've been on any Marvel Rivals social media within the past year, you've probably seen multiple videos of people talking about characters they want in the game. So I thought I'd make a video on characters I want in the game. I'm going to be doing 2 Vanguards, 2 DPS, and 2 Strategists. Now I'm going to try and pick characters who wouldn't have their kits be super similar to already in-game characters. So unfortunately that means no Juggernaut for Vanguard, because I really can't see how they do Juggernaut without just making him the thing. I'm also going to try come up with some rough kit designs, and now, before anyone says anything, I'm no balancing expert, I'm a pretty decent player, I'm Celestial too, but no promises that these kits are going to be fair. So let's get on with the video. For my first tank, I'm going to go with a character I've wanted in the game for a while now, and that's Sentry. Just off of first glance, I think he'll probably be a permaflyer brawler, something like Angela, and they'll probably give him some energy based attacks. His primary fire would probably just be punches, and I can imagine them giving him some sort of secondary fire where he like shoots out energy. I imagine for one ability he would have something like Iron Man where he can enter a boosted state of flight, and for his protective ability I can see him maybe wrapping himself around teammates and gaining damage reduction and blocking damage for them taking it himself. For his passive I imagine him charging up energy and unleashing it by shooting an energy blast or charging into someone with his flight. And for his ultimate, I think if you know anything about Sentry, you know where I'm going to go with this. I think you just make him the Void. I think it should work something like Nano in Overwatch, where it gives you 50% more damage done, but 50% less damage taken, and maybe replace his energy blast with like telekinetic pushes and pulls, something like Sue. And I'm thinking it lasts about 5 or 6 seconds, so for that small period of time, he just becomes this absolute monster on the battlefield. But that's my idea for Sentry. On to the next Vanguard. So for the second Vanguard, you probably heard me say at the start of the video about how I'm not going to do Juggernaut because I think he'll just be the same as Thing. And I'm still going to stand by that. I do think it would be very difficult to make Juggernaut differently. So for my second Vanguard, I've gone with a more niche character, one of the X-Men, Armor. So Armor's powers allow her to create the sort of energy suit of armor around herself. While inside this, it gives her boosted strength, stamina, all that stuff. Alongside all that, she can release concussive blasts from her armor. I imagine she'd have a pretty simplistic kit, probably a melee primary fire, a block secondary fire, and her psionic blast. I think it'd be really interesting to give her an ability where she can sort of transfer shields to people, so she gives someone like temporary 50 shields that wouldn't heal. As for her ultimate ability, I'd probably do the fact that whenever one of her ancestors dies, her powers massively increase. I imagine the ultimate would make her health go from something like 600 to 800 and maybe give her more physical damage and give her unstoppable. I think when the ultimate activates, any allies inside the zone around her get given 50 temporary shields, like the ability I was on about earlier, and I think it should last 8 seconds. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention I'm also picking out skins for them, and I forgot to do it for Sentry, so for Sentry my idea is the Thunderbolt suit. And as for Armor, I think you give her the ultimate X-Men run. Moving on to DPS, I think there's a character from a trio that is really missing, that being Sam Wilson's Captain America. I don't think he would be a permaflyer, but I think he'd be something like Phoenix, where you can enter a temporary state of flight. To differentiate him from Captain America, I think you give him both a shield and a pistol. I imagine his primary fire would be a pistol, and maybe he'd have an ability where he can pull up his shield and shoot from the pistol, and the shield would probably have 100 HP before he has to pull it away. When he activates his flight and pulls the shield in front of himself, I imagine he'd gain the ability to dive bomb down in a short distance in front of him. For another ability, maybe he calls out Red Wing, and Red Wing does like a pulse that reveals the people behind walls to him within a certain distance. For his ultimate ability, I imagine he'd wrap the wings and the shield in front of himself, and deactivate his jetpack and fly forward in a set direction, and any enemies hit in that direction would take a good bit of damage and get flung backwards. As for his costume, I imagine they'd go with the Brave New World skin, as they already have a bundle for that. My second pick for DPS was initially going to be Cyclops, but now it's looking closer and closer to he's actually going to get added to the game. So for my second pick, I'm going with Iceman. I think an obvious ability he needs to have is the ability to just put ice on the floor so he can skate across it. I imagine his primary fire being these big projectile blocks of ice, and I think he'd probably have something like the Luna Snow and Emma Frost team up where he can make an ice wall. I imagine he'd have an ability where he sort of throws out like powdered snow everywhere in a direction, and all enemies hit by that are hit with a slowing effect. My idea for this is it's supposed to be used to slow down the entire enemy team's tempo and allow your team to just rush through them. For his ultimate ability, I imagine you'd be able to shoot a quick burst of a beam of ice, and any enemies caught in that get the Squirrel Girl immobilized effect, so they're essentially just stuck in the ground, unable to move for about maybe 3 seconds, 4 seconds. As for his skin, I'd give him the look from X-Men Days of Future Past, because it's an actual shame that no X-Men characters have their black leather looks from those iconic movies. Moving on to Strategist, for my first pick, it's the leader. No, I'm not talking about the one from the Captain America movie, I'm talking about the big four-headed green guy. I imagine his primary fire to be a sort of gamma pistol where it deals damage to enemies and heals allies. I don't think it'd do much damage in healing, because I think the main thing you'd focus on is his first ability I have, which I would call Gamma Enhancement. My idea is you'd have a meter above the ability that shows you how much energy you have, and based on how much damage or healing you do, when it's fully charged, then you can attach it to a teammate, which then it would give them a damage boost and reduce damage taken. Another ability I can see himself having is one where he increases his rate of fire and slowly gains some small passive healing. As for his ultimate ability, I kind of wanted to go in towards the mind control side of his abilities. I imagine he'd take control of one of the enemies, either picking it himself or at random, and he'd be able to attack them while in that form. To keep it fair, I think if he gets anywhere near an off map, he should lose connection, so he can't just kill people for free. As for his skin, I think you just make him look more like a scientist, put him in like a lab coat and stuff. Now, onto my second pick for a strategist, I have Kang the Conqueror. Now I know that might sound a bit strange, but hear me out. I imagine for his primary fire he'd have a gun which, just like Leader, would deal healing and damage. But I think a fun idea for his kit would be he randomly reaches his arms out into a portal and pulls out a randomized weapon. Now these weapons could do different things, such as giving damage boost to his teammates, anti-heals to enemies, damage resistance, you get the picture. I think this could be a really fun concept to play with. For another ability, you could give him a temporary 1 second shield he pops on himself. As for his ultimate ability, I think you slap him in his chair, and then when you're in the chair you get two options. You either pick Accelerate or Reverse. Now if you pick Accelerate, what it does is it affects the enemy team. And what it will do is it will temporarily make all of them deal less damage, and they'll slightly lose a bit of health. And if you pick Reverse, your team will slightly gain some health and do more damage, essentially making people older and younger. As for his skin, I think you give him the He Who Remains look from Loki. If you stayed this long into the video, I want to say thank you, and if you could consider liking and subscribing, that would help me out a lot. And hey, depending on how this video goes, I might do a part 2 of more characters I'm added to the game. But thanks for watching, and bye.